else out here is trying to lead with the tune and everything. And in this wonderful, beautiful winter weather, doesn't it feel good to come home to Unity on Sunday and you walk in and everything's prepared. It's like, wow, this is a place of peace and healing, and I just walk in and I feel it. I feel the presence of so many that, through the week came early, sprinkle a little salt out there so I don't slip on anything. That's what we create in communities, don't we? Right? It's a way of being with each other. And it nurtures our awareness of peace. It really nurtures our awareness of peace. It doesn't give it to us, but it nurtures it. Well, I also wanted to, in our new year, because the last time I was here, I think was right before Christmas, I believe. And I just wanted to appreciate this last year as Matthew and I, as members of this ministry, spent some dedicated time, supporting our Board of Trustees here, supporting all of you, giving some insights into ministry today and so much more. And one of the things that was true during that whole time is that this was not a contracted position. This wasn't something that Matthew and I said, well, we'll do these services for you, and if you give us this amount of money, we'll call that good. It was always about supporting the spiritual. And one of the things that's been true about this ministry for probably all of its days, some of you would know, this ministry gives a percentage of what comes in financially in support of spiritual good. And at different times, Matthew and I were recipients of that giving, of the tithe. And I want you to know how that feels in my heart in today's world, that we in this ministry, in ministries all around the globe, that we sustain a spiritual principle of giving in that spiritual way. Was the John Randolph Price? Was that? Yeah. It is really our consciousness of God. God is our source. Our consciousness of God as supply is our supply. And so when we're working with that principle, no matter where we're at, no matter what circumstance we're in, we are never without. You and I could be on the deathbed, and we will know there is no hindrance to God as source, and God is the supply right now. It's powerful when I think about it, meaningful and life-transforming for me in all these years in Unity. Now, I know I sound a little stuffed up today. What I want you to know is what I said to everybody that was here early. I'm at the tail end of this. I am not at the beginning when I'm spreading, what we don't want to spread around on our planet. So please just know that I wouldn't have come if I didn't feel absolutely confident that I'm not contagious in any way. I hope I can be contagious spiritually. That's what I hope. Okay? Right now, today, we are in the midst of what's called the Season for Nonviolence. And how many of you are familiar with the Season for Nonviolence? Okay, some of us, good. It's one of the things that I emphasize each year since I was exposed to it. It was actually envisioned and started by Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, the great teacher of nonviolence and leader of people in South Africa and India, and then of course his influence spread all around the world. Martin Luther King Jr. studied Mahatma Gandhi and the principles of nonviolence, how we can address systems. In fact, they both said the same thing. Don't put your focus of anger or upset or frustration on people. Okay? Put them on the systems that lead to becoming channels of people's frustration and anger and upset. We want to address systems. Okay, so the season for nonviolence is 64 days. Those 64 days are marked by the memorial anniversary of both those leaders. And the whole notion is that in 64 days, 64 ways of nurturing peace through the practice of nonviolence. Today, I want to really address that nurturing of peace. I feel like it's something for us to live, obviously, but more than that, it's something for us to study, because so often we think that peace is going to come from, I don't know, just the right environment, being on a beach in Hawaii right about now. You know, I'll be peaceful when this situation isn't occurring. But no, friends, peace comes from within. Peace comes from within. All right? And so there is a beautiful living story that is happening in our midst, in our country right now, if you're not familiar with it. And I will give you my insights on this particular story. So how many of you are aware that there are 24 Buddhist monks that are walking for peace? They left the home temple in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a 2,300-mile journey. They have just left, let's see, where did they just leave this morning? Today, in fact, is their 99th day of walking for peace. They left Pittsburgh, Virginia this morning, the University of Pittsburgh, which asked if they could host them and give them a place to overnight. That's where they were last night. They are walking to Washington, D.C. And how many of you are familiar with the fact that these monks are walking? They didn't take out a big ad. They didn't try to promote it. However, the idea was 3 years working in the consciousness of the lead monk, Bhikkhu Panakara. Okay? 3 years he thought of this. Now, in his sect in Buddhism, he actually is familiar with these walks. It is a part of their historical approach to life to do these walks. I won't go into that. You can look it up yourself. What is unique in the history of the United States of America is for this to be happening. And as they began their walk and walking through Texas, they were sleeping at night on the ground. They walk with their bowls, which means that they walk and they are fed or blessed by the alms and the giving of people that see them. Okay? Over a period of time, you can imagine people's attention move from, well, that's kind of weird, or see that? See those people walking? To interest and intrigue. It got people's attention. And in our society today and in the world today, what do people do when something gets their attention? They take out their cell phone and they take a picture and they get a little video, and then it's spreading out there, right? It's dandelion seeds going everywhere. And so this is what became obvious, is then it went viral. Went viral. And so now what I can tell you is at some of the different stops, and again, people are now know about, will you come here? Will you come here? Will you stay here? They've stayed in Baptist church. They've stayed in Buddhist monasteries. They've stayed in community center buildings. They've stayed at a university. They've stayed in different places where they are welcomed. People want to support them. They're so moved by these 24 monks walking in every condition. 3 of the 24 made a commitment to walk barefoot, which is often their tradition. Try to imagine this. After a while, in the video pictures, you see monks with taped toes, taped feet. And perhaps what even catapulted them into the minds of so many hearts and people is they have a dog, a Loka. And this dog actually was a feral dog in India when the lead monk, Panakara, was on a walk just such as this over in India. And this feral dog, surviving, came to them as they were walking, and it adopted them, and ultimately they adopted it. So here's Aloka on the walk to DC. Now, we love our dogs in this country, so I can tell you Aloka has really got the attention. What has my attention and my motivation and what moves my heart to share with you today is what moves the heart of individuals to walk 2,300 miles in every single condition to raise awareness for peace. This is what they're about. Bhikkhu Panakara asked himself, what could he do? There's so much suffering. He was in the ER here in the States, where his home temple is. He does travel around the world doing work for relief work in areas where there has been tragedies. He goes into prison systems and works in high school systems in this country, but he kept asking in this ER, there's so much suffering. He had something in his nose, you know how they put air hoses in the nose, and he said it was so painful. But then he realized that he was in a hospital, and there were how many people there that were suffering from pain worse than his. And this amount of suffering in the world was just so strong on his heart. What could he offer? What could he offer? And so this walk began. So these 24 monks have made a vow to walk these 2,300 miles. And as they were asked last night by students at the university, a whole auditorium filled with all these students. So what do you do when you get to that point where you want to quit? And the response was, that isn't a part of their mind or their consciousness. They've made a vow, and they are walking. They have had to meet at other extremes, people coming up and heckling them. Christians coming up with megaphones, trying to talk on top of their words when they stop and offer a talk at wayside rest areas. They've encountered so much, but all along they give these messages over and over again to raise awareness. So a lunch message and an end of the day message. Now, in my heart, one of the things that became so obvious as I watched thousands of people in Raleigh, North Carolina, tens of thousands of people showing up to listen to them in the cold. So I want you to hear, this is now a growing focus. What a beautiful contrast to the chaos and suffering that's going on in our country and our world right now. That people have become so intrigued. They want to listen from all around the world now. People of all different languages, all different faiths, all different colors, all different persuasions are tuning in and listening to these humble monks talk about mindfulness, raising awareness for peace and compassion and kindness. Oh. Parents are showing up with their children in wheelchairs because the path is posted. You can find out where they will be next. People are flying in, going in rental cars to be on their path. I'm not making this up. This is happening right now to raise awareness for peace. They're bringing their children that are on the spectrum that have no ability to talk but make little noises. And everywhere they go, they have little strings, little bits of, maybe it's cotton like mine today. And they offer a blessing using their Pali language. They offer a blessing to right where they are at as they start each day. They offer a blessing before they eat. They offer a blessing as they chant and sing at the end of the day, and they offer these little bracelets to tie yourself to this movement to bring awareness for peace. And they always ask first. And I'm telling you, there will be people along the path in all kinds of weather, rain, snow, sleet, on the ground, bowing, begging for blessings right now. Right now, this is happening. Parents with their children in wheelchairs. I saw a 95-year-old individual in his wheelchair, Vietnam vets, all kinds of people. People with tattoos all over their body, dreadlocks down past their waist, people coming from throughout our country and around the world. The lead monk will ask in these talks, and will refer to all these individuals showing up, sobbing, crying. All these different ones, parents and others with their loved ones in wheelchairs, wanting the blessing. And he will ask in these large groups, in any size group, why have you come today? He's delightful. He has quite a sense of humor. And when he contracted a cold and needed to be even on some IVs, he still was walking. And then now he's better. He has his voice back. He'll ask this question, why are you here? And so people will say, for peace, you know. The crowds will say, for peace. And he'll laugh and he'll say, I think you're here to see us. And then everybody will laugh. And then he'll laugh again and he'll say, I think you're here to see Aloka, the dog. And then they really laugh. Everybody wants to see this dog. Everybody. And people bring things. They're giving them. They give them flowers. Oh my gosh, you should see the outpouring of giving. Now, my logic says, what are they supposed to do with all that, you know? And they didn't know this would be happening. They do have a van that follows for medical purposes, etc. So then in these messages each day, they say, well, you give us, we're so grateful to receive. And then because we're walking, we give it to others. So they just keep giving the flowers away. Little boys with little tubes of, you know, chapsticks. People throw, you know, boots in their hands just because it's so uncomfortable to see that these individuals are walking in all this weather and that it's painful and that it's difficult. We want it better. But what they want is to raise the awareness for peace, compassion, and kindness. Every small town, every village, every city now, they are met by the first responders, they are met by the police staff, they are met, the governor of North Carolina came to them, Day for Walking for Peace proclamations. They put little pins, they have sheriff badges. He's filled up now this piece of fabric so many times, it's heavy. He tells everyone it's heavy. They have to put them in the van. And they thanks everybody for working and showing up for peace. It is a growing movement of hearts for peace. So my question to you today, and all of us, and those that even watch later, why have you come here today? Why do I keep showing up? Why are we here today? Most of us here in this ministry have said, oh, it's for community. It's my community. But I believe underneath is something more. We come here today because we're living our lives. And there's a lot of difficulty. There's a lot of challenge. And there's so much beauty. But we are barely able to be with the beauty because there's so much going on in our minds, trying to understand chaos and wars. And not only that, as Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, he said thoughts are things, and we're having a lot of thoughts going on. Anybody have a lack of thinking going on? And when we don't know how to work with this thinking, guess what? Those things are building up in there. You almost need storage areas. You got to put rental spaces out there for all your thoughts. You got to compartmentalize them because the thoughts are taking over. And the beauty is barely able to have its profound influence on our hearts right now. It's too cold. We're too old. It's too painful. The thoughts go on and on and on. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, said they acquire whole communities of thoughts. They have their buddies. They're invited in. Anybody relate to this? Okay then. Why are we here today? Because there's a chance that we might be able to learn the tools that we have been working to learn. I'm not saying we learned them, but that we in Unity and New Thought and ministries and synagogues and mosques, we have a spiritual idea that there is something that we call God that is a source. This is no different than the Buddhists. In the mind, we have the capacity to work with the mind to discover this source, and that it is our supply for peace, contentment, compassion, and kindness. Woo! This is important. But it's going to require that we take responsibility for the mind. Because guess what? Jesus was brilliant in trying to help us understand that we have this something, the consciousness of mind, whatever you want to call it. And then it could be fertile ground, but it could be thorny ground. You could be having seed, idea of peace. Today is going to be my peaceful day. The lead monk says, write this down every day before you pick up your phone, your lover. He calls it your lover. This guy is so humorous. He said, what do most people do when they wake up in the morning? They have their lover in bed with them. They're with their lover right away. No. Start with your mind. Make a choice. Today is going to be my peaceful day. And not only that, he could have been one of my students. Write it down. Because you got to go from your head down into actualization. And oh no, people will trot off to the bathroom with their lover. How many of you go into the bathroom with your lover, the cell phone? He's funny, this guy. Now, I can tell you, last night at the University of Virginia, those students, he said, get honest. And they were raising their hands, okay? And he said, we have to be responsible for our minds. Jesus wasn't the first teacher to teach that, okay? Because we can lose our minds, can't we? It's the stark reality of having a mind. You can lose your mind and you can go crazy. We don't want to lose our minds. We don't want to lose our minds to dementia. We don't want to lose our minds to Alzheimer's. We don't want to lose our minds to grief. We don't want to lose our minds to mental illness. We don't want to lose our minds to anger and resentments. We don't want to lose our minds to lack thinking. We have a mind, this precious gift. And there is a possibility for you and I to realize peace within. The monks are asked, how do you deal with so much pain? And they say the same answer to any question. We practice mindfulness. Mindfulness. How do you deal with this or that? Mindfulness. So we don't require much sleep and we don't require much food. And this one monk, I just love him. I don't know his name. He said, what do you have to lose in the practice of mindfulness? What do you have to lose? And then he laughs and he said, because he's on this walk for peace for 2,300 miles, practicing mindfulness day in and day out, because they must. It's their way, but they're in a very difficult challenge, right? And he said, I have lost weight. And he said, oh, and I've lost my diabetes. They're walking for peace. They're practicing mindfulness. Let me share with you some of the writings that came out of the Gospel according to Thomas. Now, why is this something I want to share with you? Because the Gospel according to Thomas, these Gospels, these writings, were actually found much later in the 40s. Okay, and so they are less polluted. They actually are more representative of the consciousness and what people understood, and their little writings. And this would have been the way any of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, it would have been their way to write down just little memories, little, what they remembered, okay? And in this particular Gospel, this particular passage I'm going to read you, which is number 97, what stands out as boldly different is this. Jesus said, the kingdom of that, and we could insert God, heaven, Father, okay, resembles a woman. Right there, we might ask ourselves, well, this might be a little closer to the Jesus that we have a sense of, that invited women and then didn't have women turned away, that went to women that were hurting and suffering, that didn't make women that touched him in big crowds, even though they were bleeding, wrong. So that the kingdom of heaven might be compared to a woman who was bringing a jar full of meal. Okay? And you've seen pictures from these countries where women would carry on their heads, they would carry a large jar of meal. And as the woman walked along, the meal, the handle of the jar broke, and the meal spilled out after her along the road. She wasn't aware of the fact that she had, that this was occurring. And so she reaches home and she puts down the jar and she finds that it's empty. So we can look at this story metaphysically. We can lift it up into an understanding of what might this be? Why is this teaching so important? The vessel that the person is carrying, that the woman is carrying, is like our mind. And it has a handle on it. And the handle is cracked. And then what's in this beautiful vessel that she has worked so diligently to harvest and to put into it with her community has spilled out, and she gets home and it's empty. And what I would say to you is, do you have a handle on your mind? Does it feel like it's broken? Do you feel like you don't have a handle on your mind? Are we able to be mindful of one thing at a time? Have we cultivated the mind to be ever so present? Thank you, Eckhart Tolle, for so much work, the power of now. How are we doing? Don't tell anybody else. I can tell you that for my own self, many, many years in unity now, 50 years maybe, every day is practice. Every day is beginning again. Every day is a new opportunity. Now I want to share with you that meditation, one of our principles that we have held up in unity, prayer and meditation. Why are they principles? Because what they do, and I want to read to you actually the definition of principle, because I think you might find that interesting. And the definition of principle really has to do with something that is at work, whether we understand it or not, and that a principle then is kind of almost like a core foundational truth or law. It's a rule of conduct. but it's always at work. So in prayer and meditation, why are these principles for those of us that study spiritually? Because they become a way of being. What we hold in our minds produces. We talk about that in New Thought, right? And so what we want to do is be ever so present with our mind. But we have to work with the mind. It's so imperative that we work with the mind. In fact, Myrtle said, I will not be deceived by circumstances. Because the perceiving power of the mind, it's always perceiving, it's always at work. But it has to see through so much that's going on, right? So how do we become mindful and take care of the mind? Now I'm just sharing with you what I'm learning from these monks right now. When we are in a meditative practice, of course we want to include that each day. But we have to set aside our understandings of meditation as we probably have heard them up to now, because every individual is unique in their experience of meditation. But we are probably all the same in our experience of mindfulness and bringing the mind back to the moment, bringing the mind back to the breath, okay? So that when we are in this experience of meditation, we have the ability to encounter in a very present way that which we call God. And what is that? We teach in Unity all these years that God, it sounds like a noun, and we're talking about God as a deity. We are not. And so we have to sometimes put that word aside, but it's very helpful because we've all grown up with it probably, right? But mind is more principle. It's an activity. Mind is like creative intelligence working infinitely. Not intelligence like we think as humans, but something that is at work, that knows all, is the author and the source of all, the cause of all, but it's working. And this is what we want. Jesus said, my Father is working. Jesus didn't say, my Father's done. Jesus didn't say, my Father figured it all out in advance, now you have to figure it out. Jesus said, God is working. Whatever the word was, it conveys an activity. And then he said, and I am working still. This would be an equation. If you were a math student, you would have my Father is working equals I am working. We have our work to do. So we're going to go into meditation now, the practice of mindfulness. And it's only breathing. And you're going to put your attention right here. Bhikkhu Pankara says this is the gatekeeper. You're not trying to make your breath do anything. Okay? Now you're just noticing, oh, it's going in, it's going out. And then a thought will happen. Wonder what Kathy brought for the potluck. I'll talk to you about that later. Okay? Going in, come back. Come back. Oh, I'm here breathing. That's that's called mindfulness. I'm becoming very present. Becoming very present with, yep, the sounds are flowing by. Think of those monks walking. They're walking right now. So many people beside them. Sounds, people singing, maybe people yelling at them. All this stuff is walking. It's all passing by. In one ear, out the other. Breath. Some of those monks are just thinking, one step, one step. Another monk says count. In breath 1, out breath 1. In breath 2, out breath 2. Give this just a try. What do you have to lose? And then make a commitment now and a vow that it isn't about doing it right, but it's living for peace. I am working still. My Father is working. My God is working. Infinite creative intelligence is working. And I am working still. I breathe in. I breathe out. I breathe in. Out. I notice the breath that breathes me. I don't make it happen. I don't have to try to make it do anything. I notice the breath that breathes me. Thank you, O beloved oneness that we call God. We give thanks for all of these spiritual teachers over many years, and for the teachers today, for these 24 monks that walk for peace, and for Aloka. We give thanks for the beauty of this day. We give thanks for this life, this precious life, and the mind that we each are given for awareness, for the peace that can flow through this mind wherever we're at, whatever is ours to be and do. We dedicate our lives to walk for peace, to live for peace. We're not asking for it to be easy. We want to know and give thanks for the source that is unending, that supports us and is our supply to live this peace every day. For the courage to practice mindfulness every day. We dedicate all of this for our children across this earth, for the water, the earth, the air, all living creatures, and for those wise elders continue to encourage us in our midst. And so it is, and amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the Well, thank you, friends. And at the end of the service, of course, I won't be able to do this with the friends online. I'll have a little bracelet for you, right? Something that you might consider tying to your wrist. It's cotton, and perhaps leave it on for 64 days during our season for nonviolence. Something to remind, something to encourage. You're not alone. We're together in this. And as our mind is the link with God mind in every individual, of course, in every individual, no matter their religion, I share with you these beautiful words from the monks as a blessing for all of us here today. May our footsteps remind you of the light that has always lived within you, the peace that darkness tried to hide but could never extinguish. May that peace rise gently now, like dawn breaking, dispelling every shadow and filling the empty places with warmth, with hope, and with the remembrance that you have always been whole. May you and all beings be well, be happy, and at peace. And for that we give thanks for this blessing. All right.